Today, we are going to be talking about how to build information systems and how to manage projects. Many information systems are built based on projects and managing these projects in the correct way. So, you have a very good project management process that is in place, and many information systems developers as well as personnel professionals usually go through these project management concepts and tools and applications to build information systems. So, we will be talking about both the basics of building information systems and managing these projects as well. Developing an information system needs to have a very refined solution and a very good process. So, this is the process that we have in place in many organizations. The idea is to basically get the best solution among a varied amount of solutions that are in place. So, to do this, information systems professionals go through what is called systems analysis. Systems analysis basically includes one, defining the problem, two, understanding the problem, three, developing alternate solutions, and four, choosing the best solution from these alternate solutions, and then five, to implement the solution. When they define the problem, they need to make sure that the problem is defined in such a way that it does not have any problems of its own. So it is easy to read, easy to understand in a very cohesive way. And from the definition of the problem, the professionals should understand the causes or to how to identify the causes and how to identify the solution objectives and identify information requirements. So the problem should be in a very cohesive way, easy, understandable way. The next thing is once you define and understand the problem, then you can identify alternate solutions. So it is not one solution. Usually it is a team of people with many ideas or varied background who can identify alternate solutions. From after identifying the alternate solutions, the team can choose the best solution by evaluating the alternatives. Once they choose the solution, then implementation is the next thing to do. In the implementation, the professionals or IT professionals create detailed design specifications. They buy hardware, they develop or acquire software. Once everything is in place, once the solution is developed, then they will test the system. Once the system is tested and made sure that everything works, then they need to prepare for training and documentation. Training the employees is a very important portion of developing systems because that's where the end users can start using these softwares that are written by the IT professionals. Documentation is also essential. It's not even an essential in many organizations. It is a requirement because when systems are developed, they are developed by certain people and they do it in a particular way. And maybe 2 years from then, if the system developers leave the place or are no longer there, then somebody else has to go through the system or the document and make sure that they can change the system. For that, documentation is necessary because they need to know, the newcomers should know how to decipher what the others have written. So, for that, documentation is absolutely essential. Once everybody is trained and everything is documented, then they need to make sure that the system is implemented, and they need to evaluate the solution to make sure they can improve it in the further case. So usually after the implementation also there is another way of doing things, an iterative way of doing things, in the sense that the once the implementation is done, people can go through the solution and then start improvising the solution by adding new features, by deleting some features which are not necessary, by changing the code so that it is more efficient and effective, and so on and so forth. So defining and understanding the problem talks about people might have different ideas about the nature of the problem and also its severity. For instance, what caused the problem? Why does it persist? Why hasn't it been solved? What are the objectives of the solution? The information requirements identify who needs what information, when they need it, in what form they need it, and how they need it. And this is called requirements analysis. So to begin with, you have to understand what the problem is, and then you go and find out what are the requirements, and then analyze those requirements in order to bring out the solutions. Using these requirements, you can develop alternate solutions. In this case, paths to a solution are determined by systems analysis. For instance, some solutions do not require an information system. Some solutions require modification of existing systems. Some solutions require new systems. And even in these different requirements, like not at all, or modifying, or new, even in those cases, you need to come out with some alternate solutions to come to be evaluated. The next thing is evaluation. Here you do what is called a feasibility study. Is a solution feasible from, let's say, financial standpoint, or whether it is towards the technical standpoint, or whether it was towards the organizational strategy standpoint, whether it can be done at all, whether we need experts to do this, whether we need consultants to do this. This is where all the feasibility studies are done. Systems are often reported and proposed by consultants. So you might need consultants in many cases. And these solutions, these different solutions or alternate solutions that you're coming up with, describes the cost, the benefits, the advantages, disadvantages, and also compares each alternate solution to say which is better, or the pros and cons of each solution. Once these solutions are available, then the information systems teams can look at those solutions and come out with the best one that can be done, and the best one based on cost, benefits, advantages, and disadvantages. Then the implementation is done. Systems design is started, and then once the systems design is completed, then they pretty much do the implementation, which is putting it on the computers and mainframes, or the client servers, so on and so forth, right? And that is where the implementation is completed. For that, you need to select hardware, you need to acquire hardware, you need to develop software, you need to program the software, you need to make sure that the testing is done and the training and documentation like we talked about, and then the conversion to the production system, which is going to be on the main computers, so that, or client server computers. And also at that time, you need to have views on maintenance, how to maintain the system so in the future. So maintenance has to be also involved, or the systems maintenance people have to be involved at that point after the implementation is done or just before the implementation is done. Managing the change is also important, because when users are asked to use new systems, they may not like it. So at that time, you need to make sure that the users understand why the system is beneficial to them, as well as for the company, as well as for the world. So all these things has to be managed very well, and that is called the change management principles. Let's talk about traditional systems development lifecycle. And this is called SLDC. This is the oldest method for building information systems. And it is often a phased approach with certain formal stages. For instance, you need to do A and then B and then C and then D. After doing B, you might want to revisit A. This is an iterative way of doing it. After D, you want to go back to A to change something that you want to, so on and so forth. So this is basically the way that the systems development life cycle is done. And this is often called the waterfall approach. Here you have a division of labor. There are people who will come up with the solutions. There are people who will implement the solutions. There are people who will test the solutions. There are people who are going to convert the solution, so on and so forth. And this traditional systems development life cycle is used for building large, complex systems. And also, it is very time consuming. And it is also very expensive to use. This is the basic traditional systems development life cycle, SDLC. Now, the systems analysis people will complete their analysis and give their analysis to the systems design people. The system design people will take the analysis into consideration and start building the systems. And that is done using programming. And once the programming is done, you are going to have the testing of these programming. The testers take the programs in a very integrative way or in a modular way, depending on how it is done. And then it is converted to the client servers or to the computer systems that are in place. And then that is given out as production and then future maintenance take place after that. Now, the traditional systems development life cycle, SDLC, also has got few things that you need to think about. For instance, if the systems design is not coming out properly, then you might want to go back to the system analysis and do the analysis a little more. When testing, if something goes wrong, you might want to go back to the systems analysis or to the systems design to redesign that. If the conversion is not going to be working, then you might want to test more. And if by testing more, you can find more problems, then you might want to go back to the systems design and then do the programming. So this is more iterative. So the traditional waterfall, this is the waterfall that we are talking about, waterfall approach, also includes an iterative process. We will continue this in the next video.